So let's talk about some of your memories together as children, and your parents, just memories, things that stick, that stick in your minds.
Okay, well, I can remember when he was about 2 or 3 years old, he took all his clothes off and went down in the garage, and we couldn't find him for a while. We didn't know where he was. And then one of us found him down there, stark naked, and he thought that was very funny.
I have no idea why I did it. Except I must have been hiding from mother.
Probably, yeah. And then I also remember my mother got into a closet, which was about by our side door. She wanted to get something in there that was way back in. And Johnny came down, and he was, how old were you then? Like 4 or 5?
Yeah,
Or no more than that.
No, I think I was probably 3 or 4.
3 or 4.
I could hardly go up and down the steps.
Yeah, and he went up there and he pushed the door shut and it locked. And nobody else was home. And there was mother stuck in there, which she didn't mind that so much. What she minded was her little guy was out there on all these steps and could fall down.
Steps went down the basement, and
Yeah.
you could easily have fallen off the side of the steps.
Oh man! But our groceries were delivered then, and it wasn't much longer. Mother kept talking to Johnny, saying, stay right there. But our grocery man came very soon and unlocked the door so Mother could get out. So you were saved.
And I've heard those 2 stories
A lot, many
over
times.
and over, so that I almost remember
like it had,
doing them.
right.
Although I have no idea why I was hiding under the...
Probably because you were naked.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay.
So what about your parents, and how did they die, and when did they die, and where did they die? And
Well, you can do that.
Yeah, our father died. He was attending a postgraduate medical program in Boston, and was driving from Boston back to Westfield, which is where he was born, to see his mother. His father had already died, and the truck jackknifed over his car, and he was critically injured. He had rupture of his diaphragm and broken bones, and he lived for 36 hours and died in Worcester, Massachusetts.
We
in
all
the
got there,
hospital. Yes, Eileen and Mary and I got there. But
Were you able-
only,
was he conscious? Were you able to talk to him at all?
Yes.
he recognized us and couldn't carry on much of a conversation, but he was conscious, and he certainly knew we were there.
First thing he said to me was, he used to call me Mayor, and he said, "Hi, Mayor, how are Jack and the kids?"
Oh,
And I thought, my golly, here he is in all
And he
this.
called me Ja because that's what Dave called me.
Oh, that's right, Ja. Yeah.
Mary's oldest
Ja.
son, David, for some reason, because Mary had moved back to Shelby for a short period of time, and when David was a baby, and he called me Ja, and that's what my father called me when we came to the hospital.
what year was that he died?
1950.
50.
I was a senior in high school. I was 17. He was 53, which I thought was pretty old at the time.
Oh,
but
yeah.
now that I'm 77, I realize
How young it
how
was.
young it was.
So what about your mother?
Our mother lived to age of 79, but she had Alzheimer's the last 4 or 5 years of her life, actually a little longer than that, and was at a nursing home in Green Springs, Ohio for the last, I don't know how many, 2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years,
of
yeah.
her life. And probably died of a stroke. She had high blood pressure, but
But we were right with her. Or I was when
Yeah.
you were there too, weren't
Yeah.
you, when she
Mhm.
died?
Yeah.
Yeah. And one little incident that I remember, one of the nurses told me, uh, the nurse was taking her into the bathroom, and mother was sitting on the toilet, and the nurse said to her, "Gertie, Gertie, you are purty." And she said, "Oh, shut up," which she wouldn't say usually.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really unusual.
Oh, golly.
So any other stories?
I don't remember too much because my sisters were 5 and 9 years older than I. I remember staying home on Saturday nights and had to write down the
The
name
hit
of the
parade.
top 10 hit parade, which were mostly Frank Sinatra records, who I got hooked on listening to. Because I heard them more than Eileen did, because she was always gone and I was the one that was listening to the music.
Oh, one thing I can remember about Eileen, is it okay for me to talk about Eileen?
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a grand piano, which was over by a window where you could, see when you first came up our walk. And when Eileen would have a date, she would watch out the window to see if the date was coming. And then she'd sit on the piano stool and spread her skirts out over the piano stool, real pretty. And then she'd start to play whatever was her best song at the moment as her date came walking up.
I don't remember that.
Don't
at
you
all.
remember
No,
that?
I don't remember that at all.
Oh, boy.
So any other childhood memories?
Eileen went to St. Mary's of Springs. She went to Miami University in Oxford for 1 year, but I think our mother thought the social life was a little excessive, so she put her in a nunnery for the next 3 years of her education. So she graduated from
St. Mary's.
St. Mary's of the Springs, which is now the Ohio Dominican College.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She met her husband, Richard Laux, while they were in Columbus and were married. And Eileen lives in Elyria, Ohio, has lived there for some time. She was divorced, and her ex-husband is now deceased as well.
So do you want to talk about how you met your spouses? Did you get into that?
No.
Go ahead. Then I'll do it.
As I mentioned, was divorced in 1972, or close to 72, and then Connie and the children moved to Fort Myers. I then remarried. I don't want to discuss that marriage, but a little bit on the rebound. But then met my present wife, Mary Jo, worked at the hospital, at Shelby Hospital where I practiced, and I also had known the Herlihy family. Her maiden name was Herlihy for a long time, and Mary Jo then divorced, and we eventually got together and married in 1979. We were married in Provincetown on the Cape, and have returned to Maine and Massachusetts a number of times on vacation. Mary Jo had 2 children, Jessica and Erica, who now live in Atlanta and Louisville, Kentucky, and have families of their own. So.
And you and Mary Jo live in Shelby again, or back in?
Right.
We
live in Shelby. I retired 5 years ago, and we just returned from Fort Myers, where all of our 5 children who are scattered in Los Angeles and San Antonio and 3 live in Florida, but we're all together and at my daughter Ann's, and also 12 of our grandchildren, and we have a new great-grand son, Harrison, who was also there. So we had a wonderful time, and one of the few times where we really got all of our kids, grandkids, and great-grandson together.
Who's Harrison's mom?
Jamie,
Jamie, that's right.
Kathy's oldest.
Mhm.
So we recently just returned from Fort Myers, and John came back with us, and we are spending a day here at my sister Mary's, and then we'll return to Shelby.